Welcome back to the Morning Boat. My name is Eric Abelos. As promised, we will continue to provide you the most up-to-date information as possible about the local COVID-19 response in our community. In-house, we have special guest Heather. Heather, who are you?
Hi, Eric. My name's Heather Savalox, and I'm the Senior Environmental Health Specialist for the Routt County Department of Environmental Health.
Well, I know we've recently had some changes in our restaurants with this whole COVID-19 experience. Can you give us the most current situation with that?
I sure can. Over the weekend, the county's variance application was approved by the state, which allowed the restaurants to move back into dine-in services.
Nice. Okay. Have you seen any restaurants open their doors to dining yet?
Yes, quite a few. Several were very excited by this news that came out late Saturday and opened their doors as early as Sunday for breakfast, adhering to the variance protocol. So we were able to get that information out. The county issued a press release very quickly and alerted the community to the new norms.
The new norms. What does that even mean? What are those new norms?
Oh, that's a good question too. So the new norms, I guess you could call them, with dine-in is really specific for the restaurant operators themselves. There's a lesser capacity to ensure proper social distance requirements. That's at 50% of occupancy. And tables have to be moved so that they're 6 feet from one another. There needs to be 8 people or fewer at a table, and there, 6 feet of separation between parties that are not related. So they're really trying to prevent people from mingling. But what is important to understand from the customer standpoint is that once the customer comes into the restaurant, when the customer approaches the restaurant, they need to wear a facial covering. And once they're seated, they take that facial covering off. So I think there's been a lot of confusion about how am I supposed to eat a meal with a mask on? And that's not really the case because the customers do remove their mask when they're seated. And then when the customers move around is when they need to put the masks back on. So if they're going to the restroom or making a phone call or have to leave their table for any reason, that's when the facial covering becomes required.
Interesting. And what, if any, precautions are the workers having to take?
Oh gosh, quite a lot. So, the restaurant community is they're heavily regulated by our department and the state of Colorado. So they're used to complying with obviously food safety regulations and guidance. The added information related to COVID is really specific to keeping themselves and keeping the customer safe. So what they're really working on is the employees are required to wear facial coverings at all times. Again, this is to protect themselves and to protect the guests. They're also required to self-screen, which that can be confusing for folks as well. It does not mean that the restaurants are actively taking people's temperatures, but what that means is the employees, it's the employee's responsibility to screen their own health every morning before they come to work, and then the restaurants are responsible for logging that information and tracking it. And if anyone shows up with symptoms or reports illness, that they are excluded from the workplace and they have to stay home. They have to get tested and make sure that they're fully recovered before they would come back to the workplace. So there's a lot of requirements that the restaurants have to go through to ensure that those protective measures are in place and that the community is kept safe. one of the criteria for the county getting this variance is from the state is that if we reach a situation where we would have 26 cases in a week, they could actually pull our variance. So we want to make sure that we're doing everything right and that we're going at a measured pace that keeps us moving in the right direction.
Wow. So if we do have, if there is like a second wave of this, we've already got ordinances set up to where we can just pull the plug on things, or how's that work?
Well, that's the way the variance is written.
Okay.
It's very specific to that number of 26. I think there'll be a little bit of a metered approach. Obviously,
Yeah.
if the public health saw any bumps, but I think it's really that's the overall response to our variance approval. And I think it's just important that the community knows that there's a lot of people keeping tabs on this to make sure that things go right, because we want to keep moving forward. We want to keep this optimism going and positivity so that we can move forward successfully.
I know everybody is wondering this question. Once restaurants are fully open, like fully open, are we
Mhm.
going to go back to you cannot buy alcohol to go, or is that going to be something that is still permitted?
Yeah, these are interesting times. I've been doing
Yeah.
this job for like 20 years, and I've never seen a lot of the things that are happening now. And what you have to understand is the state and the restaurant association are really working, understanding the difficulties that the restaurants are having at this time, and allowing for things like liquor sales is something that's brand new. And what I've been keeping tabs on is that this is going to continue. They're actually looking to extend it for at least a year and maybe even two. I know a lot of the restaurants have really taken a new approach and a new pivot where they're using this as an opportunity to sell kits, maybe a Bloody Mary kit or a breakfast kit, something that gives them that another revenue stream. And I think that's going to be important moving forward.
Okay, so I have to ask you, have you eaten at a dine-in restaurant since they've been open?
Yes, twice
Yeah,
already.
twice.
Yeah.
What was it like? How did you like it?
It was good. I mean, it's different. It's different for everybody, and that's I think really important for folks to understand. So as much as the this is hard on the restaurants and the staff, it's hard on the consumers. So we're not used to this. We're not used to having these restrictions on the consumer as to wearing the mask, coming in, what you're allowed to do, not allowed to do, not allowed to mingle, table to table. So there's going to be a lot of adjustments. For me, I mean, it's interesting to see it from a regulator's standpoint, but also to appreciate what is going on both sides is also really important. And just the facilities where I was, it was very clear that the restaurant, the business owner was very strict adherence to the protocol. In fact, last night I was at a patio where some folks came out onto the patio. The customers were approaching, and they didn't have masks on, and the restaurant didn't have a crisis over it. They quickly went and grabbed a stack of disposable masks and said, sorry, folks, this is the new normal, and we do need you to wear these masks when you come in. And as soon as you sit down, you can remove them. But if you're going to move around, and everybody was compliant, and there was no questions or crisis. But it was good to actually see that happen in person and see what the response was.
Thank you, Heather, so much for coming in and taking your time to chat with me this morning. I got to ask, is there any other thing that you want the general public to know about these changes?
I would say that, let's just give everybody time and let's just, move forward in a way that is going to help the business community, help the restaurants get back on their feet, if you don't feel comfortable and you don't want to go to the restaurant, there's still other options. You can certainly keep doing takeout and delivery, but getting back to this sense of normalcy, it feels good. It feels good to sit at a table and talk to the servers. And I think this is such a small community. We know each other so well. We know our restaurants. We have our favorite places. We want to get back to a little bit of socialization and keeping it safe and keeping ourselves safe and our community safe. So if we can make all of those things happen, we'll be in a good spot.
Awesome, Heather. Well, thank you again so much for joining me this morning. Steamboat, you heard it. Go out and eat. Support your local family and friends and restaurant owners and staff and all of those guys by going out and grabbing a burger or something to eat. We've got a lot more of an exciting show coming up, so stay tuned.